Welcome to the National Minority Supply Development Council's Equity in Business podcast. My name is John Daniel, and I'm humbly your host. I'm honored to be here, but I'm thrilled and excited and strengthened and encouraged by being here with Miss Michelle Foy, who is the founder and president and CEO of Proceed Screening. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you for taking some time with us and gracing us with your presence. I'm going to get right into it if it's okay.
It is, but let me just say thank you for having me.
Hey, listen, it's an honor to be here with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had a chance to get to know this young lady, and she's a powerhouse. So if I seem a little biased, it's okay. Tell me a little bit about your backstory.
Absolutely. Well, ironically enough, we are sitting in my hometown. I am a native of Atlanta suburb, College Park, Georgia, right over by Delta Airlines. Huge fan of Coca-Cola, so all of the things. I grew up just outside of the airport in public housing. Although I knew my parents and I lived with my parents um, for a time period, I also was a ward of the state.
Wow.
And
How many years?
I became a ward of the state around the age of 14.
Okay.
And then I think they have a certain time. Back then, there was a certain amount of time you were a ward of the state because, of course, the purpose of DFACS is to reunite families.
Right.
Right. And I was not reunited with my mother, but I was, my grandmother, Mary Ruth Varner Smith, actually took guardianship of me.
Grandmothers always come through, don't they?
Always.
Grandma's hands. Go to church on Sunday morning. Yes, indeed. Tell me about how you came to found Proceed and what it means to you in reference to where you've come from. There's got to be a connection.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that word connection, and I'll be honest with you, John, it took me a couple of years to even figure out what the true connection for Proceed Screening was as it relates to my personal history. I was born to a 14 and a 16-year-old in a children's home, and they both came from maternal and paternal lines of alcohol abuse. Of course, people don't call it alcohol abuse, they just call it adult beverages, right? And so they had their own turmoil at home. So they became parents, and I like to think that they were the best parents that they could be based on their circumstances. But what it really yielded for me growing up was seeing not only alcohol abuse and use, but also ultimately substance use and abuse. Not specifically with my parents, but more so with the extended family that I live with. And so, fast forward to I became a teenage mom at 16. I gave birth to my first son, DJ, at 17 years old. And I found my way through my support system, through my friends and their families allowing me to live with them,
Yes, ma'am.
through my God family, through even more extended family. So, quote unquote, I made it. I graduated from Frank McLaren Open Campus, which is an alternative school. I went on, I finished my undergrad, I finished my graduate degree, got married, got divorced, got married again. And then tragedy struck. My husband and I, about 9 months into our marriage, my oldest son, DJ, he was murdered. And it was drug and gang related. And DJ was he was a typical 24-year-old, I would say,
Yes, ma'am.
on average, right? And, I didn't really know what to do with what I grew up with. You know what I mean? I didn't feel that I had the strength to really reach back and help. It was a lot, right? But with DJ's murder, the first thing I did was founded a foundation, a nonprofit, the Breakthrough Foundation, to
Hmm.
support youth in helping youth go from potential to true purpose.
So you use this tragedy to encourage and help others.
I did. I did that probably 30 days after DJ was murdered. I immediately went to that because so much of our youth, they get lost and everybody doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up, right? I always knew what I wanted to be from the time I was 5 years old. I always knew, right? But everybody doesn't know that. There are people who are 50 plus years old still trying to figure out who they are and what they want out of life. And I said, well, one thing I know is that education is a game changer. If you just go to school, you figure the rest out later. It gives you some leverage. But fast forward from that, I would say about a year or so after that, being a corporate technologist, because I didn't mention that part, my background is corporate technology.
Yes, ma'am.
Technology. I started right here at what is now Southern Company, used to be AGL Resources, Atlanta Gas Light. I was on the project that deregulated natural gas, good, bad, or indifferent. And that was the catalyst for my career. I was in the IT department as a secretary. I took on other responsibilities and ultimately found my way into management consulting. And so I've managed not just domestic projects for conglomerates,
Mhm.
all the faves, SunTrust, which is now Truist, Cox Communications, Cox Enterprises, McKesson, Morehouse School of
It's
Medicine.
huge companies and
Yeah,
organizations.
absolutely. Samaritan Health, Wake Forest Baptist Medical, the hospital and the school. Um, I've implemented into 22 countries at a time. So, a lot of technology leadership experience, Piedmont Grady. But I went to get a drug screen for one of the contracts. And the room was not even this large as this space. And it was like the lights from heaven came on out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking any more about a drug screen than anybody thinks about a drug screen. I have a technology contract. I'm going to get a drug screen, background check. I'm doing all the things. And God tapped me on the shoulder and told me to ask the gentleman who was doing my screen, how did he get started? And I felt very heavy in that moment, like my feet couldn't move and my mouth couldn't open. And so God nudged me again and said, do what I said. And so I said, excuse me, can you tell me how you started, this business? How did you start doing this? And fast forward from that point, I said, I'm going to open up a drug testing center in January. This was November. Actually, I said February 1st. And I opened up Proceed Screening February 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And God told me that the point of me opening Proceed Screening was to help communities, help families, help people keep jobs, help people get jobs, save lives. He was very clear about the purpose of Proceed Screening. And so finally, all of that turmoil from my younger years had caught up with the tragedy of my current state and the skills that I had to start a business because I'm educated, I'm experienced in corporate America, and I have the purpose behind it.
Somebody said, it was an old Baptist preacher. Let me say somebody. He said, you got to go through to get your breakthrough.
Yeah.
And it's a classic example that the good, the bad, and the ugly that occurred, because you did get married to a man that you love. You did have children. You did have things that were good. And so I want to dig down a little bit deeper on this, not so much in terms of the tragedy, but what's your vision now of how you would interact with attracting, training, and developing your employees to care for these people who need help?
Absolutely. So my current structure is so Proceed Screening is a national provider of workforce recruitment, retention, and productivity solutions.
Yes, ma'am.
And what that means is we provide third-party administrative services to regulated companies. So anybody who's regulated by the DOT, trucking companies as an example, but also non-regulated companies who feel they have a corporate responsibility to have a drug and alcohol policy and programming in place that supports their workforce, such as Google. I know Google is a really good one with that. And so that being said, we have raised up a national network of these centers to make drug testing, background checks, fingerprinting, I-9 automation, and things like occupational health exams more accessible. Okay. And then I have an offshore team. So stateside, I run fairly lean. I rely on the centers that we have created primarily, as well as other third party um, companies as well. But we also have an offshore team. And our offshore team is our back end that allows us to do more of the consulting side of the business, program, project management, operations, sales, and
Yes, ma'am.
marketing, right? And so diversity, we have diversity in at the economic level, because you have people who have they haven't had any formal education, and they may have never had what people term a professional job, right? But then we also have serial entrepreneurs,
Right.
right? We have people who have completed an education but decided, a corporate job is not for them. And then we have our offshore team, which is in the Philippines.
Wow. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
And you had a great vision for that as it unfolds. What about your supply chain? Obviously, you're part of somebody's supply chain. Are you working with diverse suppliers to assist you in this big operation?
Absolutely. I think that I was on Amazon, even as an example. I'm hosting a live event here in Atlanta this Saturday, the 26th, where I'm going to help some clients on our B2C side understand how to push their companies forward through B2B, through B2C, as well as B2G. And so as I'm on Amazon looking for some things to support the activation side of that event, I tell my husband, hey, can you order this for me? I want to get it from this particular person because it's a small business.
Outstanding, outstanding. Um, what's your next step? Well, first of all, how long have you been working with the National Minority Supply Development Council?
I've been working with the council just about a year. I'm a new MBE.
Okay. And that's a unique place to be. And you began to share with me your lens on what's happening here not long ago in this conversation. Tell me what it is you see that's beneficial as a new MBE.
So, what I have found and what I share with others about being an MBE is number one, you have access to companies who actually want to, I say, they're diverse supplier friendly. They want to do business with you, right? We
Yes,
want
ma'am.
like what is it? Matches made in heaven, right?
Yes.
There's a match made in heaven because you're not soliciting companies who have a deaf ear or a blind eye to the challenges or struggles that you may be facing. They're not counting those things against you. Instead, they're looking for your strengths. They're looking to see how they can further develop you as well, develop your company as well. So I would say number one is the access to diverse, friendly companies who want to do business with you. Number two, I was a member. I participated in the Capital Readiness Program with Malika Carton.
Yes.
That was amazing as well. With the influx of entrepreneurship, from someone who has a management degree and an international business degree at the master's level, people really underestimate entrepreneurship. and they underestimate sometimes what it means to be a small business. And I think ensuring that individuals are properly educated through programs like capital readiness so that you have the proper posture, not to just survive, but to actually thrive in this thing.
Absolutely. Do you envision a legacy coming from Proceed screening that you could pass on to a family member or friends, the community? Because as I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is that you've earned your right to be where you're at. You earned it. And as a result, you value it. Do you want it to continue beyond you?
So I want the spirit of what I'm doing to continue.
Come on now, unfold that, unpack that. Come on.
Well, I'll give you an example. So when I started my drug testing center, it was hard, right? It was hard. I had formal education, I had corporate experience, but I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. That's different,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So that being said, I was flying by the seat of my pants and looking for every way to make money possible. And so one of the things that I did was I added another business for my daughter called Sanaa Couture Beauty, which was essentially a day spa. And I utilized my lead list was my drug testing clients to build that. Well, I built up this whole spa for her. She had no interest in it. She said,
Wow.
I don't want to be an entrepreneur. She's going to be a nurse. She had no interest in it, right? My son is a tennis scholar at Tuskegee University, and I've been, you know, bothering him about name, image, likeness deals. He's like, that's cute, mom. That's cool, mom. I don't think he's really interested in it. So I can't say, oh, I know that I'm going to leave Proceed Screening to my son, my daughter, or my grandchild. But what I am leaving is the spirit. And my mission, I believe, is to change the trajectory, right? So each generation has gotten better. And this is why corporations who support MBEs are so important, because I was fortunate to make it, but everybody doesn't make it. Every little girl born into the circumstances that I was born into, who went through the things that I went through, willfully or not, does not make it. So by providing these opportunities, it allows me to better position my family to positively contribute to the world that we all live in. They don't have to be entrepreneurs, but because if I have a thriving, flourishing business because of the valid and legitimate services that I provide, it's easy to give Tuskegee 40K a year per child. So I don't see that, but I do see the trajectory and the spirit of service and standard of excellence and resilience instilled in them. So that's really what I feel that I'm leaving.
It's outstanding. And I think that spirit is the essence of any success in it. Going forward, how do you see your relationship and collaboration with the National Minority Supplier Development Council and Proceed Screening?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I hope to be able to be a part of the team next year for the 2025 conference. I hope to be able to volunteer in some capacity, small or large, because just from the not even full day of activities, just from the activities last evening and the alumni breakfast this morning, is I can tell the conference is going to be phenomenal. And I would love to just be an extra set of hands,
Yes,
in
yes.
helping. But on the business side of things, my company is working on an AI infused technology to support companies in having relatable messaging and drug and alcohol awareness training to their teams, because there are so many people who are showing up to work as functioning addicts, whether whether or functioning alcoholics,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we want to help remove some of the stigma around that conversation by having something that meets the employee where they are. Yes, you have an EAP program. Yes, you have a drug and alcohol policy, but the point of that is not to be like bad John,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The point is to meet John where he is,
Right.
right? And take him to where he should be.
Right.
And so we're working on the AI infused technology, and we're also working on a physical product to help make drug testing more accessible as well. So I see myself working with NMSDC
Mm-hmm.
to partner with corporations
Mm-hmm.
who may want to be a part of that conversation,
Right.
and who also may want to be recipients of that service.
I got it. I got it. As we come to a close, I want to make sure that if there's anything that you want to share that we haven't talked about, and we've done a lot, that you have the opportunity to do it.
Oh,
Please,
wow.
ma'am.
Oh, wow. Well, I think I just want to, issue an altar call, if you will, to the corporations. I want to first thank you for being a part of NMSDC. And if you're not a part of NMSDC, but you are happening on this awesome podcast episode, I want to encourage you to get plugged in, to learn more about NMSDC and how you can serve, because it is truly corporate responsibility when we understand that people go home to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just what they do at work, it's what they do outside of work.
Right.
Don't assume that your intellectual property is safe. It's not just about drugs and alcohol and people having accidents or people not showing up to work, or, it's also your intellectual property. So having that comprehensive view and increasing your HR competence
Mm-hmm.
so that you are responsive and not reactive in this area. That's what I would say.
I love it.
And they can reach me. You can reach me directly, simply by going to www.presescreening.com or www.presebrand.com. There is a mechanism for you to leave a message. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. And I look forward to serving and supporting.
Absolutely. And we can put that legend as a part of this podcast. So make sure we have all of that down. I appreciate you coming and spending some time. You, just in reflection, purposeful, faithful, driven, tenacious. These are words that make me think about who you are and how you represent yourself and how much better you want to become.
Absolutely.
Blessings to you and your family.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much. Cut.